How are you doing, folks? This is Brother Mike, and I'm glad you stopped by, because I gotta tell you something. It's a lesson that I learned from a child, and I think you're gonna like it. I think you're gonna learn a lesson too. And I'm gonna kind of preface this lesson with a couple of questions for you. Here's the first one. How can we be happy living on an island in a sea of despair? I mean, this is what we all want. You know, we all want to be happy. You know, we all want freedom from our anxieties, from the suffering that we endure. But how can we be happy? How can we be truly happy living on an island of happiness in a sea of despair? Because even when we do achieve this thing, you know, called happiness, it's not really true happiness if those around us continue to suffer. You know, aren't we doomed? Here's my second question. Aren't we doomed to the constant, unfulfilled desire for peace when we neglect those around us who suffer? Now I want to tell you this story, this lesson that I learned from a child. You know, I'm a storyteller, and I was telling a story to a little girl one time. And the story was about her cats. She had a bunch of cats, and she loved these cats. But she had these neighbors, and they were not very nice people. They used to steal her cats. And she'd go over there and liberate the cats and bring them back home and love them up. Then the next day, these neighbors would come back and they'd steal the cats again. And then she'd have to go back over there and get these cats back. And this cycle repeated itself, you know, and she even called the police. And the police came and rescued the cats and delivered the cats back to her and took these people that were stealing the cats to jail. And she had a little bit of peace for a little while with her and her cats. But eventually those people were released from jail and they went back home. And the day after they returned home, they went right back to stealing her cats. And it became a quandary. I mean, you know, there seemed to be no end to this. And I said to the little girl, I said, what are we going to do? How are we going to stop these people from constantly stealing these cats? And it was a big time story. And you know, when you're in that kind of twilight state, especially when you're a child and you're engrossed in this story, in your innocence, trying to understand the nature of these people who constantly offend you, almost to the point where there's no liberation from it. You know, how can you really have peace, you know, when you got these people in your environment who are constantly offending you? And you know, I love to tell the story, but sometimes when I'm telling my stories, I like to involved the person I'm telling the story to, and in this case, like I said, it was a little girl, beautiful child, maybe 7 or 8 years old. And I said to her, and her name was Lainey, and I said, Lainey, what are we gonna do with these people? And she kind of thought for a moment, and I saw it in her eyes, going deep inside of herself for an answer. And then I saw her returning to me, the teller of the story, her laying her sweet head on her pillow. And she looked at me, and she said, maybe we can give them a new heart. And I had everything that I could do to keep myself from choking up. Because, these children, Jesus Christ says, come unto me as a child. I mean, these children, they're vulnerable, they're innocent, they have purity of thought. And what an answer she gave me. Maybe we can give them a new heart. How can we give others a new heart if we haven't first given ourselves a new heart? And once we have found this peace, once we have found this liberation from the suffering and have arrived at a point in our lives when we feel we've made it, we feel we've arrived after this journey of discovery, how can we truly be happy living on an island of peace in a sea of despair? Aren't we doomed to the constant unfulfilled desire for peace when we neglect those around us who suffer? And this is why, if we've devoted time and thought and prayer and meditation to achieving a sense of inner peace, it's worthless if we don't share it. We've got to reach out, because there are people out there who haven't made that journey and who may never arrive at that place of peace if we don't tell them how we got there ourselves. So that's why I just want to encourage all of you to take that big I out of your life, that letter I, where all the arrows are pointing inward. Yes, point, let the arrows point inward, yeah. The kingdom of God is within you. Peace is within you. The answer is within you. But let me tell you, folks, if you're one of the fortunate few to achieve peace in your life, it's worthless unless you share it. And that's what I wanted to share with you today, okay? Because we complain about the world and the way it is. We stay up nights, concerned, afraid even, about where the world is going and how we're forced to live in this world. Well, got some late breaking news for you. The world is like it is because we make it that way. And we might not be able to change the whole world, but you know what we can do? We can change as many lives within the world as we can by sharing with others how we have freed ourselves from that feeling of despair, that feeling of dread, that constant suffering. And that's how we're going to really experience peace. And that's all I got to say to you. I want to thank you. Brother Mike loves you. And go out there and touch somebody's heart. Just like that child touched my heart. Maybe we can give them a new heart, she said. And we can.